Welcome, Dawn Weatherwax Food for Speed Podcast, Olympic Edition, Fueling Gold. We are focusing on how to fuel your performance and your peak needs. How do we do this? Well, we started off with doing a comprehensive nutrition consult. Then we followed that up just understanding labs and medical history. And now we're going to be talking about metabolism. Understanding your metabolic rate enables us to do a personalized nutrition plan that aligns with your energy expenditure for optimal growth, processing speed, and recovery, plus much more. What in the world is metabolism or metabolic rate? It's known as RMR, resting metabolic rate. That is what you burn if you just sleep for 24 hours a day. We actually use the Med Gym. You breathe into it, and the nose is plugged in. You just breathe 5 to 10 minutes. You're very relaxed. And believe it or not, someone very smart figured out a long time ago how we breathe oxygen and CO2 tells us our resting metabolic rate, how much fuel we burn if we just slept for 24 hours a day. And then I take that and compare it to our initial assessment of what you're consuming at what time and how does your fuel needs match up with your burning needs. Fuel is calories, okay? You're going to hear it throughout because I get that question. What is fuel needs or fuel units? Because food is a calorie. Calorie is heat. Heat is energy. Energy is fuel. Food is a calorie. Calorie is heat. Heat is energy. Energy is fuel. Our metabolism is calories, right? How many calories we burn. So I say how much fuel you burn a day. That is keeping us alive, our heart pumping, our activity. And then when we intake, that is the fuel to replace it. If they are really mismatched, there's a problem there on many fronts, okay? Because if you want to thrive to grow, I get this question, can you make yourself taller? Unfortunately, I don't know how to make someone taller. You can't change that unless you break bones and let the bones fill in. But you can make yourself shorter than what you're supposed to be. If you're not fueling enough when you're supposed to, you will slow down growth because the fuel in the muscle will go low and the body will say, well, it takes fuel to grow and it takes fuel to do the activity. And if you don't stop the activity, then the growth has to slow down. And you hear this a lot. Oh, my husband was a late bloomer. I was a late bloomer. A lot of times, very active, always on the 5% or 20% or lower weight percentile. And then they grow after high school, especially males. That's because they're probably not playing a sport past high school. Now they're not in school all day, so they can get more fuel in and they're not burning as much of it. And they're lucky that their growth plates are still open. Growth plates for males, males are in puberty until 22 to 24. Females stop around age 18. The myth is that once you have a cycle or a period that 1 or 2 years after, you won't grow anymore. Truly, the only way to know if your growth plates are closed if someone gets an x-ray on the growth plates, because I've seen females grow their senior year and have had a cycle for 4 years. They did not fuel enough they had enough fuel to have a cycle, but they didn't have enough fuel to optimally get that last inch or a couple of inches that they needed. And I've seen that happen. We need to maximize every stage of growth, health, and development, which then in turn impacts their overall performance goals. But 76% of athletes do not eat enough or they eat poorly. And that's our issue. We have to see what our metabolism, then I look at what they're doing and do they match, okay? So again, we're doing nutrition and testing. We want to thrive, not survive. What do I mean by that? And I explain this all the time because the body is miraculous at keeping us alive. Just imagine, when it comes to fuel or calories, the body doesn't have eyeballs to this world. So you're closing your eyes, all right? So you can't see anything when it comes to how much calories you need to eat or how much fuel you need to eat. And really, you don't have any ears and you can't hear anything. Therefore, it does not know that you're living in the 21st century. It does not know you're in this blue room listening to me. It does not. It just goes, wow, I am supposed to be burning this much because my heart, my lungs, we are living beings. Without food, without hydration, and without sleep, we will not be existing. So it senses, okay, this is what I need to stay alive. And I have all this activity, and then the fuel might not be matching, and it doesn't know what's happening. It goes, I wonder if your crops died. Maybe there's no buffalo. Maybe you couldn't get a dinosaur egg. And so you know what it does is this is so miraculous, because some people go, I'm not hungry, therefore I'm eating enough. Well, that's not always the case, because sometimes you can drive down your metabolism because you've been telling the body, hey, I'm not eating enough to match. And so the body goes, well, I'll bring down your metabolism. So sometimes you can drive down your metabolism because it's a survival mechanism. And think of a time when you were really, really hungry. And imagine you have no food and you have no money and there is nothing. And that hunger would not go away unless you ate. That would be awful. So the body doesn't know what's going on, but it senses that day after day, and it goes, you must be in trouble. So I'm going to shrink your stomach so you're not going to be as hungry. I'm going to bring down your metabolism so you're not as hungry. Now, I see this more so in young athletes, 18 or under, or males 24 or under, than adults. We can chronically undereat, but it doesn't impact us as much as when we're growing and developing, because people continue to forget that those that are not done growing need the fuel to grow and to develop optimally. And then they need the fuel to do their performance. And until people understand that, everybody spends money on training and equipment, but very few people understand how much fuel you need, or how much fuel your athlete needs, and how much they're actually consuming. And metabolism testing helps with that. Working with somebody one-on-one helps with that. If you don't know, you don't have access to something like metabolism testing, then we do have an academy where I walk you through calculating and estimating your fuel needs. And then there also is in there how to track and know the fuel needs of your athlete. This is always a questionable step. We're not counting calories. We're not trying to be on a diet. It's information, and it's supposed to be educational. It's great if the athletes are old enough and mature enough and are in a good place to just know what they're eating and when and what portion size, because that is knowledge and that guides their future. But sometimes it's not always the best, and that's where our parents step in. Or if you have young ones, you have to do this for your athletes. They cannot do this for them. So you want to know what they're actually consuming and what they actually need with all their activity. And our favorite app is Chronometer, because it starts at age 12, but you still can put in age 12. And if they're younger, at least you have an idea of what they're actually consuming and then what they actually need. I always say you have two options. You can put them in as very active, or just put them in as sedentary and then add all their activity in. But for the case of athletes, young athletes, 18 or under, or 22 or 24 under, I'd always put very active and then add their activity in, especially if they're in a cardio-based sport, soccer, lacrosse, swimming, running, those things. Not maybe for baseball, volleyball, because it's just not the, you're just not doing as much cardio and they won't burn as much. So it's so important that we understand what you're burning and then what they need to get to where they need to go. Now, what if you have somebody on the other end of the spectrum where they're fueling enough, but they are struggling to get leaner? That draws me to other reasons that we might need to be looking at, because that goes back to my other podcast on labs and family history and their nutrition information that they gave us. If 1 + 1 is not equaling 2, you need to seek out advice for that, because usually something is not working. And you see it more in females just because they have more hormones and things that are going on. But I have seen it in men, and we need to address that. I truly wish that nutrition was simple, but every single person that comes in my door is different. Even within the same family, with the same mom and dad, and I know most of us can correlate with this. One athlete might be more up and down, and the other one is stocky, and you see it young. That is already laying the groundwork of their genetics and what nutritionally might be better for them. And each of us have different food allergies or food sensitivities. The list goes on and on. It has to be customized. Somebody who says, this is the only way to do this, you better shut that down so fast, because that is 100% false, because that's what worked for them. And they're not doing nutrition and testing for most, and even some doctors that specialize maybe in fibromyalgia or things like that. That's what they see with the majority of their client base, but it doesn't mean everybody in the world. Okay, we're different. And so you have to go at this with an open mind and not just put barriers up and just assume it's for one, it's for all, and be very cautious about that information and where you're getting it from. In fact, my head hurts on a daily basis with all this information that's out there and how I can help individuals, especially the ones that are not that simple. And even with all the knowledge I have, I still don't have all the answers. And I do my best to keep learning and get them referred to where I think they need to go to get that help, because I know it affects them daily. I know it might affect them mentally, and I know that it will impact their goals that they came in to see me. And that's my job, right? To help you know where you need to go with where you are today, with your future dreams. How do I get you there? How do I help get you there? And how do we know how to do that? That's nutrition and testing. So metabolism is a piece of that. And I hope you enjoyed this tip and have a great and healthy day.